And also in the I mean, just from the new album's perspective, in the Fragile reissue booklet, Richard Christie talked about there being, or about him and Chuck's Watchtower fandom and how they got inspired to incorporate electronic drums to his drum set, which I think he said was part of the Man and Machine drum kit and not the Fragile one. Would you consider a Man and Machine to be more technical, like Sound of Perseverance?
Yeah, you have those aspects throughout, interspersed throughout the music. It's heavier. This is a much heavier record than the Fragile Art of Existence was. And yeah, it probably, I would say, yes, it is more akin to the Sound of Perseverance and some of Chuck's older heavy works, and more progressive stuff.
Cool. And also the part of Fragile that I really appreciate the most is, or not the most, I mean, I appreciate everything, but the atmospheric qualities of some of the reverb effects used. Did Chuck specify anything to Jim Morris about anything similar to that?
Of course, I wasn't there when he was working with Jim, but absolutely. I mean, those lush reverbs and the soundscapes that Chuck envisions, and Jim's worked with him on how many records now? 4 or 5? Mm-hmm. And yeah, so Jim has a whole library set up just for Chuck of different sounds, different room sounds, different reverbs, phasing, delay sounds, all kinds of cool stuff.
Cool. And when did Death officially reform in when you first got in the band, and then they had to go and do Perseverance?
Oh, you're asking kind of the timeline of between the demos and Sound of Perseverance and then Control Tonight again. Yeah, things did get a little crazy there. I guess it was 97 when I went down to do the demos. And then I came home, of course, went back to my regular job and interning at a recording studio and working my way up. Actually, by the time we did the initial demos, 3-song demo, till we actually recorded the Fragile Art of Existence, I had worked my way up in the recording studio from an intern to an engineer, through a second engineer, of course, to an engineer, and then to producing. Yeah,
oh, that's cool.
So, yeah, it took that much time, but what happened in the meanwhile is the deal that they struck with Nuclear Blast. They asked Chuck, hey, we like what you're doing with Control Denied, but it would probably work a lot better if we did a last Death record. Let's give the fans one more Death record, and then give them a heads up that we're switching gears here, and then go to Control Denied. But they'll say, let's segue. Let's just not all of a sudden slap them in the face, because after 8 records, or how many records did he have out by then? He had a lot of records out by then, and a lot of fans that they've been loyal to him. So I mean, they deserve to be led into this gently, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And what about the period when Death finished touring and they closed, and then the Fragile recording session started?
How much time?
Oh no, just details about that period.
Oh, okay. Well, of course, they did the Sound of Perseverance tour, and one of the dates at the end of that tour was Pittsburgh, and so I went down to see them at that gig, and I got to meet Richard. I hadn't met Richard yet. Chris Williams was the original drummer in the band. He and Shannon had started a band called Beyond Unknown.
Yeah,
And,
they just released the demo thing, which is really good.
It's finally out, and it's really something that I would urge any of the Death fans and Control the Night fans, check that out. But it's really it's really from the mind of the same guys that contributed to the Sound of Perseverance, or the Sound of Perseverance, and the Fragile Art of Existence. So Chris decided to keep on doing what he was doing, and so Chuck put the lineup together to do the tour for the Sound of Perseverance, and wound up being Richard and Shannon and Scott Clendenin, and they did that tour, hit Pittsburgh. I got to meet them, and it was a few more weeks till they were back home. That's when Chuck gave me the heads up that everything was go for Control Denied. Busted out the tapes again and went over the material that we had thus far. And then it was the end of January that I flew down, and I lived with Chuck for a couple months down there. Which
cool.
was
And when did you hear the news of Chuck's illness?
Well, we knew something was wrong when we were about halfway through my vocal tracks, and Chuck and I had separate hotel rooms side by side, and he would record in the mornings and up until the mid-afternoon, and then they'd take a dinner break, and then I would jump in and I would sing for maybe 4 hours, 5 hours, and then we would go back to the hotel, we'd review what we had done for the day and go over what we were going to do the next day, and then maybe go catch a nightcap, hit one of the local bars or a strip club or something, and just enjoy the evening for a couple of hours, and then go back to the hotel room, go to sleep. Well, he started having these headaches, and then he didn't want to go do anything once we were done, and it was kind of scary because and it was hard to figure out what was going on. It's like, dude, you just got off a tour and jumped right into this. You're on the phone with the record company, and there were some things he was working out with the record company, of course. I mean, that's what you do. But, there were these heated conversations and stuff like that, and he said, no, it's not any of that. I'm used to that. This is different. He says, I'm having these blinding headaches. They won't go away. I can't sleep at night. And I said, well, tell you what, I have a whiplash in my neck from a motorcycle accident way back. And I go to the chiropractor every once in a while. They adjust me. It puts everything back in place. And, my headaches go away and I feel great for a while. And you go back and get adjusted again. Why don't you try it? So he did. He was going, a couple times a week to the chiropractor, and it was feeling okay for a little while, but still something seemed wrong. So, that was just, like I said, about halfway through the vocal tracks. I got done with my tracks and went back home, and that was the beginning of March. It was, right around his birthday was when I, wait a minute. Losing track. It's been a long time, Alex. Went back home anyway, and was hanging around, working at the studio and stuff, and waiting to hear back for when it would be time. Once everything's mixed and it's mastered and the record's ready to be released, it's time for the band to get together and start with intensive rehearsals and get the songs nailed down and know them like the back of your hand so you can sing them in your sleep and all that. Waiting for that call, I'm just going over the material over and over and over again so I can get down there and start rehearsing with the band. Well, I decided to take a trip down there to visit a friend. And, the plan was I'd hang out with my friend down there for a few days and then go visit Chuck for his birthday. And, I had called and called and called and called. There was no answer. And so I ended up, driving back home to PA. And when I got home, there had been a dozen messages. Tim, I got to talk to you. Tim, when you get my message, give me a call back at this number. It's really important. Tim, this is really important. I have to talk to you. Please give me a call back. Well, the last message said, Tim, I have to tell you this. I don't know where you're at or anything, but I have to tell you this. I've been diagnosed with a brainstem tumor, and I'm up in New York, and they're going to do surgery. I think that was his first chemo or something. And, that really blew my mind. I just got over my mom dying from cancer in September, the year before. And then my aunt died right after her. My brother died during the making of The Fragile Art of Existence. I had to go back home after we had been in rehearsals and working the last of the demos out. And I had to fly back home and see my brother off. And that really, when I got back, Chuck and I talked about that because, I think, fans have read about Chuck's older brother and Chuck losing his brother and how much that affected his life. And it was really his motivation for death. Turn that, that horrible experience to turn that around into something positive. And, he told me, when you get back here, I want you to take what you're feeling and put it into this record.
Yeah.
Explaining, why he, what's driving him to write this kind of music is exactly what I'm going through, and so now it means so much more, and the fans deserve to hear that kind of loss. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sorry to hear about your family and everything around that situation.
Well, thank you. Listen, man, it's not just my family; it's everybody's family has to be.
Oh yeah, I mean, same here. I know my uncle was in a coma for 2 years, I think, and just died randomly. It was pretty hard. So yeah, it happens all the time. But Chuck was a trooper, though. I mean, he went to work right away on the Man and Machine, right?
God bless him, he did. Yeah. He was not doing so good for a while, and he went through a couple surgeries and chemo treatment and everything, and then things looked really good there for a while. It looked like he was out of the woods, and that's when he, as soon as he was feeling well enough, man, he grabbed that guitar and sat down and started demoing the songs, and and then ran down to Morristown, grabbed Richard, and started tracking. And he got all that done. He had all Richard's parts are done, and all Chuck's parts were done. Shannon got his solos done.
Oh, cool.
And then he managed to get those demos to the record company and get a deal for the band, get us off Nuclear Blast, as he wasn't happy with that, And then when he found out, of course, like we just discussed before, he found out that that deal wasn't so great after all, and he wanted to get out of it, but he was too ill to fight that battle.